All right, welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ivan, and with me today is Abram. Abram, how was your day?
My day's going pretty well. Right before we started recording, my Achilles started to give me a really hard time. I don't know what it was. I almost fell down, but I believe that's a David Beckham injury. So if it's the universe telling me I'm like David Beckham, that must be a good thing.
Yeah, for me, my day was good too. Teaching my intercultural communication section in my introduction to communication class. So it's a bit of a hybrid course, different areas of communication. But intercultural is always one of my favorite things to teach because of how
Yeah.
much exposure soccer has given me to different cultures, whether it's watching people on TV from different parts of the world or interacting with fans and hearing about their stories with the sport and coming from different parts of the world here in the United States.
No, for sure. Soccer does that. Like intrinsically, that's what's going to happen with all the sport like we do.
Yeah, that's why for those of you that have seen any of my notes that I use to prepare for these podcasts, you'll see the three-layer FIFA symbols next to any player that comes from a country outside the United States because it helps me learn more about the players that we have in Major League Soccer. But one thing that we learned from the Earthquakes in this last game is that they were able to compete in hard mode.
Oh, for sure. No, I would definitely agree with that. It was not easy what we did against Kansas City.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster of emotions. It was a slow incline, and then we went downhill, uphill, some loops. So we'll jump right into it. We'll go through the lineups real quick, and then there's very specific key moments I'm sure we can spend a little bit of time on. Starting with the hosts, Sporting Kansas City, Pierre Vermes went with a 4-3-3, Pulskamp in goal, a back line of Davis, Fernandez, Volader, and Leibold, a midfield three of Basang, Bartlett, and Manu Garcia, Suleimanov in the right wing, Eric Tommy on the left wing, and Dejan Joveljic, who expectedly scored against us up top. So we knew it was coming, but we'll get into the circumstances of that goal in a little bit. Would you like us to? Would you like to run through the starting lineup for the Earthquakes, Abram?
I don't have it here in front of me. So if you could actually do that, that'd be great. I probably could name it off the top of my head, but I don't want to mess up.
That's okay. I'll go for it then. It was an unchanged
Thank you.
starting 11 for the 4-0 win over Real Salt Lake. Daniel in goal. The back three that has been very impressive 2 games in. Rodriguez, Dave Romney, and Bruno Wilson. Espinoza on the right. Jamar Ricketts left as the wingbacks. We still got LaRue, Hernan Lopez, and Ian Harks. That's going to change in match 3. And then Martinez and Arango. They came alive in this game as a strike partnership.
For sure, I totally agree. They were involved in. They weren't just involved in both goals, like respectively, but also like they were combining together, which is what we want to see. We don't just want two individuals. We want two guys who are gonna like have a connection, and they definitely do have that.
This feels like a cop out, but I think this game merits a player of the first half and a player of the second half. And for me, the player of the first half was definitely Josef Martinez for the assist and the goal. And not only that, his goal ties Bradley Wright Phillips in the MLS goal scoring charts. Regular season only, 117 goals, tied for sixth with the Englishman.
No, I mean you got to be honest. He's a better player overall. Bradley Wright Phillips played in a time where the league was much different than it is now. He came from England, and it was a little bit easier for him than it was for Jose Medina, in my opinion, who came from Atalanta, who also came down from a bigger league. I will concede that, but he has kind of, in my opinion, more to his game. He's more of a vicious striker. I'm just glad we have him on our team.
Yeah, I'm super glad he is on our side. Let's go through the top five. I think that for Josef Martinez, if he has a really good season, he could finish this season in the top four. These top three are going to be tough to catch. Of course, Chris Wondolowski, you know him, you love him. He's number one, 171 regular season goals. Kai Kamara, 147. Landon Donovan, 145. but these two will be looking over their shoulders a bit. Number 4, Jeff Cunningham at 134. Number 5, Jaime Moreno at 133. Any thoughts on this list? And now just knowing that we have three earthquakes players, but two that we want to focus on, of course. One current player that is in that kind of list, in that kind of territory.
Well, you could consider it four, because Kai Kamara was an Earthquakes player at once upon a time. Um, I don't know if you counted him, but then we have Landon Donovan, of course, who's
Yeah.
the third on the list, and then there's Jose Martinez. And I don't see Jose Martinez retiring or leaving MLS before he gets past Bradley Phillips and cements himself on the list firmly as number five, I believe it would be, or six, sorry, um, number six. And he's going to be gunning for that number five, but that's going to take double digits of goals, and
Hmm.
that's not a given. You know what I mean? Like he will have to put in a shift for that and earn it. But luckily, with the way things are going, he could have scored that goal by himself. He ended up dishing it off to Chicho, who was in a better position. But if he wasn't chipped up, he could have just taken it on himself and finished it off. So, who's to say?
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. It's an interesting situation. Of course, Martinez and Arango are both going to eat as they both did in this game. So it's unlikely that one of them is going to be at an astronomical amount because both of them are going to have their chances. But I think that in between those two goals, which I'll let you talk a little bit more about, there was one chance that could have changed this game. Manu Garcia is one of the new players for Sporting Kansas City, and he demonstrated his ability to marshal that midfield and dribble around. He did something that other Sporting Kansas City players emulated multiple times throughout that game, that they were able to dribble really easily into the center of outside the 18-yard box, and they were able to take a few shots there that weren't far away. Daniel had them covered for the most part, but that was a bit of a warning sign that this game was going to be very, very tough. Your thoughts on that, and then you can describe the two goals.
Yeah. First off, on Manu Garcia, Ivan, can you clear this up for me? And I might be wrong, but is this not the ex Manchester City wonder kid who at one point was like a career mode wonder kid? Lighting things up in the academy. If he is,
Let's see.
that's kind of surprising that he's found himself in Kansas City. But regardless, it definitely shows because he has quality. He looked really good. Uh, to be candid, I didn't get to see the first half. I had some issues here at home, and I wasn't able to tune in. I did tune in right when Hernan got sent off, so that's when I got into the game. But from the highlights and what I saw, you could definitely see the way he dribbles is like very advanced. He didn't end up getting, excuse me, a goal or assist, but he will be very successful in this league if he continues to play like he did against us.
Yeah, that's for sure. He was in the Manchester City setup. He graduated from the academy, I think, 2016, and that was the year that he made a substitute appearance replacing Yaya Torre. But then four different loan spells ensued after that. Then he moved to Sporting Gijón and then into Greece's Eris before coming to Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about MLS, trying to grow and become a better league, and I Manu Garcia maybe couldn't quite cut it at Manchester City. Obviously, not many people can, but I think that he's definitely found a level that he could be very successful at. Because from what I saw in the highlights, at least, he looked very dangerous, very quick, and very comfortable with the ball, and also very active and eager to get on score sheet. I can describe the first goal, and then I'll let you have the second one after,
Cool.
if that's okay with you. So I believe the first goal is the more uh, aesthetically pleasing of the two. So Hernan Lopez gets the ball like 20 yards outside of the box, maybe less, around there. And he received the ball, and first touch looks forward, second touch, uh, slips it through to Jose Martinez, who's making a run with the defender on his back. He does manage to take a touch, get the ball in front of him, but he has a lot of contact on him, so he ends up losing his balance. But before he collapses, he's able to pass the ball over to Chicho Arango, who takes full advantage of his opportunity and slots it past the keeper with his left foot. First time, very good situational awareness from Arango to see his fellow striker in trouble, and scooches over to his side, and then is able to, finish off the leftovers.
Yeah, so that was definitely a great way to start the game. It was a great first 130 minutes of Quakes soccer, or maybe my math is probably a little off. I may have included stoppage time, but in any case, that those two goals were emblematic of the start to the season that the Quakes had, and then it all shifted after that. I know that the second goal was definitely scrappier. There was more chaos in the box, but that's what Joseph Martinez thrives on, and that's Quake striker DNA. Like, it doesn't have to be pretty, but we're gonna find a way, and that is great to see. Both our star strikers off the mark for the season, and it may have been a quieter performance against Real Salt Lake. Of course, 3 of the 4 goals scored came from defensive players, but they are going to have their gravity. They don't have to score every game to make an impact, and they're making an impact now for sure in game 2.
No, yeah, you see Chicho, he loves to drop back and make things happen. So, like you said, he doesn't need to be on the end of it to necessarily be effective. He's looking to do much more than just score,
Yes, he definitely is, and that's what you want from a striker because it's impossible to score every game, but you have to impact the game in other positive ways.
for sure. And can I just touch on this real quick? Uh, that near post corner, that's the second time in a row we've scored. From a near post corner from Espinosa, who, in my opinion, kind of has a hard time. You know, every so often he has a hard time getting it past the near post or getting it like towards the center of the box or far post. Off those corners, he has a lot of power, but he gets that near post pretty consistently. So it seems like Bruce is kind of just like, okay, you can't get it past the near post. Everybody get on the near post. I don't care what else you do, just get that near post. And it's worked 2 times in a row so far. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I will mention that Espinoza's corner, it was parried off of John Pulskamp. It's really tough for a player like Pulskamp who has been waiting for so long, and I mean for so long, when he was back up to Tim Melia, just finally retired as far as we're concerned, because Tim Melia was a beast every time he played against us. But John Pulskamp, I know he had a tough moment there, but that can happen for a goalkeeper, and I like to see players that they get the opportunity to start, that they're able to make their mark. And I think that he's going to have many opportunities this season to show what he can do. I think of players like Matt Freese, for example, in New York City, that he was in a lot of conversations about which MLS goalkeepers stand out. But thankfully, we have Daniel as our goalkeeper, and he got a piece to the Dejan Joveljic penalty that was conceded by an Ian Harkes handball. So, what did you think of everything that unfolded with that penalty?
So, watching from the highlight, they didn't show that many angles of the handball. Evan, you have to tell me whether or not, in your opinion, it was indeed a handball. I think those situations are really tough because I don't think a player, unless they're Luis Suarez, is ever intentionally putting their hands in a way that's going to obstruct the ball. Because they don't want to concede a penalty. Like, they would much rather it come off their body or whatever. So for me, it's unintentional, but I guess that doesn't really matter nowadays. But the penalty was really well taken. We called it that Joveljic would have a strong impact in the game. Um, he was scary in the second half, but in the first half, it's when you have a penalty, it's and they're also trying to come back. They have a lot of momentum, or a lot of riding on that penalty. It's really tough for Daniel. For me, my penalties are 90% stacked against the goalkeeper. So the fact he got a touch on it was just a testament to the ability that he has as a keeper. But really, I don't think most keepers aren't getting that ball.
Yeah, that was a really well struck penalty. For me, The reasoning that I got from commentary was that the referee judged that Ian Harkes had enough time to move his hand out of the way. That's a very eagle eye thing to judge, but referees are expected to do those judgment calls, especially now with the benefit of VAR. I didn't like the call, but I think that based on what they're going by rules wise, you have to give that penalty. I am trying to remove, bias from it as
Yeah,
much as I can, but yeah, it was a really tough one, and I wish we got more replays. But that was there was a close call with another penalty decision earlier, and I think
mhm.
there was some added pressure on top of that. But I'm not going to say that this was a big farce or anything. I think that I can understand why it was called. So that puts things on the hot stove there for San Jose Earthquakes. There was a few minor moments. There was a lot of yellow cards given in the first half.
Yeah.
Leibel, Bartlett, and Davis all picked up yellow cards. Hernan Lopez picked one up in the 45th minute plus five. So literally right before halftime, which would indicate to me you have a yellow card. It literally happened. And then 52nd minute, what does Hernan Lopez do? He repeats the same challenge twice, Abram.
Yeah, yeah. I saw the replay. I don't care if you have a yellow at that point. You can't do that. Like that's not a fair challenge. I don't care if anyone wants to argue with me. I look at that challenge like that's a an intentional foul. Whether or not there's an attitude issue with Hernan Lopez, whether he's upset about something, I don't know. That's not for me to comment on. I can sure speculate, but it was a obviously a heat of the moment decision from him. I don't think in his right mind he would do that. I think that maybe he's been kind of struggling personally about his performances because they haven't been to the standard that we've come to expect from Hernan Lopez, who, for my money, is one of the best in his position in this league. Um, it is really disappointing, and I think that he will. I hope that he will strive to do better and stay on the pitch at least because it really put us in a hard spot. We have lost a lot of leads. Like as a club, we've lost leads very consistently, and so to be 2-1 up away from home in Kansas, and then you get yourself sent off. That's anti-team behavior in my opinion, and I'm sure that he knows that, and he didn't mean to get sent off, but like you have to do better there.
Yeah, and then this put everything Hernan Lopez has done this season into question. And I think a big part of that was the big rumored move that Hernan Lopez was going to leave and that maybe there was a chance that Lucho Acosta was going to come to the Earthquakes. That didn't happen. That's the last I'm going to mention of that. So we got Hernan Lopez. He's our player. He had a decent season for what he could do in a really difficult situation in 2024. I don't think he was that bad in week one. I think that he was maybe above average. Maybe it wasn't his best game. It definitely wasn't his best game. But I felt like he was doing a good job in out of possession. He was trying to advance the ball in good ways. He had a few turnovers, miscommunications with the two strikers. But this game was definitely a head scratcher. The biggest thing that I think leads to these challenges that I hope he works on, and I'm sure he will, is that when you lose the ball, trust your midfield, trust your defense that they're going to cover for you. Don't feel like you have to take responsibility and have to make a reckless challenge like that.
Yeah, I mean that's all you can really do because he was beat at that point. That challenge was to bring down the player. It was a tactical foul. At best, that's the most generous read I can give him to just slow down the play. But it was way too violent. It was severely misjudged. Um, and I personally believe that this team is better with Hernan on it than him. Not on the team. I think that Nico is a very strong player, but Hernan Lopez is a very special player in that specific position that we need him in. Nico's more he's a hybrid 8-10. kind of player. Hernan for me is a specialist 10 and can provide things that Nico can't provide yet, and is working towards. But I've seen people speculate that we're probably better off without Hernan. I disagree, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens come Saturday.
And then the rest of the game was essentially under siege. 38 minutes plus stoppage time of an endurance test. Bruno Wilson passed that test with flying colors. He was a standout performer defensively, his organization, his reads. He was playing his A game. Espinoza and Rodriguez also stood out. I do feel like they are making high degree of difficulty decisions, and Rodriguez in particular, he had a long dribble into the opposing final third for Sporting Kansas City, and then when he lost the ball, he had to hustle back to recover. So it's a bit of a gambler's mentality, but Rodriguez is so far making smart decisions on that. But that's why Bruno Wilson is my second half player of the match, or player of the second half, whatever you want to call it. And it's becoming very apparent for everyone that Bruno Wilson's absence was a big reason why the Quakes conceded so many goals. I think that wasn't a huge mystery, but Bruno Wilson has really much upgraded this defense, and he's repaying the decision makers at San Jose Earthquakes for being able to essentially be like that new signing that he was supposed to be last season. Now we're getting him at the start of the season. Dave Romney has helped out too, but it's good that the three center backs we have, they're all quality, they're getting their opportunities, and they're all contributing. So when that's the case, you can love what you see out of this back three.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a defensive upgrade. Excuse me. I think Wilson, he was hurt, he was suspended, a bunch of different narratives last season for why he couldn't play as often as we would have wanted him to, and he looked very good to me. I thought there was some spots where I was like, okay, he's there's a goal that was kind of soft, but overall, I think he's a solid center back for this league. But if you would have asked me before you said anything, Ivan, for the second half, I would have said my man of the match was Ian Harkes, which is a complete flip around from what I was saying last week because I really wanted to see Nico on the field. But Ian Harkes did bust his butt running everywhere, did a lot of work for us, but looking back, I have to agree with you. I think Wilson did have the bigger impact overall. Without him, I think it would have been a different game. I think that Kansas City might have had a much easier time getting back into it and potentially getting 3 points at home if we didn't have Wilson, blocking for us.
Right. I think Sporting Kansas City, they had the bulk of possession as expected, but they could have been more threatening with it. There weren't too many standout chances where I felt like that was very close to scoring a goal. I know that there were a few, but in terms of past games we've watched with the Earthquakes where they've had to defend a similar situation, Houston Dynamo comes to mind. This wasn't quite as blood pressure rising as it should have been. I think one key thing that hindered their ability, and this factor was minimized by one of the Sporting Kansas City fans I talked to on Reddit on the MLS thread. So, all three of the yellow carded players, Leibold, Bartlett, and Davis, were able to be subbed off. And they were replaced by what that Sporting Kansas City fan insisted were all upgrades. Okay, so let's see who those upgrades were. Andrew Brody over Davis, lateral move. Logan Ndembe is the one I'll give him for sure. Radoja, I guess also DP contract. So 2 out of 3, I'll give him that, or I'll give that person that that I talked to on Reddit. But I felt like because they were on the bench, though, that still did mean that Vermees had to compromise his strategy for the subs he wanted on. He was able to make another center midfield substitution later, Memo Rodriguez, and then, of course, Daniel Shalhoub came off the bench. That was their biggest attacking threat. But the player that missed out, that got squeezed because of those yellow cards, was William Agada. I think that would have been a more crucial move for Sporting Kansas City to really put pressure because he is a solid striker. But that's what happens when you're trying to play the yellow card game. And frustratingly on their part, Redolia picked up a yellow card minutes after coming on. So they weren't able to maximize that advantage as much as they could. Whereas we got to see the Canadian Shield, Mark Anthony Kay, help us out in the back, and Nick Lima and Yoseni Buddha did their part as well. Abram, you're muted.
Thank you guys for letting me know. Sorry. What I was saying, um, Mark Anthony Kay has actually been a surprise to me. I didn't realize that he had so much technical ability. He has really close control and a lot of agility for such a tall frame. Players of his height, I would say, don't usually have that much ability to beat pressure like that, and he had a lot of it, and he's I didn't even know he was left footed, and that kind of shows like he didn't really show out that much during preseason, and I think that is very possible that Bo LaRue, the rookie, has given him some extra motivation, let's say, and has made him be like, okay, well, you're not just going to start here because of who you are. You have to earn it because we have other guys on the bench ready to go, and we also like those guys. We like Bolaru, we like Nico. Um, we have good names in the midfield. So I think Mark Anthony Kay has stepped up to the role that we would want from him. And for the first time in a long time, I was saying it last week, we have better depth, but this feels like a pretty decent amount of players in most positions.
I agree with you there for sure. And because of that, the Earthquakes were able to compete in hard mode for the last hour of the game, having reduced their margin of error with that penalty kick, call it unfortunate, unlucky, or uh, not great. It sucked. And then, of course, the red card turned that up to 11. Let's not do that again, hopefully, for a long time. But we were one of the standout scorers once again. I think that the Earthquakes were not expected to start this season with 6 points out of their first two games. Some of the other standout scorers were Charlotte and Real Salt Lake in the early window. They got 2-0 wins over Atlanta United and Seattle Sounders, respectively. Philadelphia Union beat Cincinnati 4-1. And then there was a thrilling game after the Earthquakes game, Colorado Rapids 3, FC Dallas 2. We'd love to see Whitecaps win 2-1 over Galaxy. And then Inter Miami without Lionel Messi. They came to Houston and they beat them 4-1. Abram, like everyone else knows about what Houston Dynamo had to do to try to quell the angry fans that wanted to see Messi. Any thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I heard tactical manager spoke on this in a reel I saw earlier today, and he was saying that it's embarrassing from their FO to offer free games to a future match in the season for anyone who was disgruntled by the fact that they paid extra money to see Messi and weren't actually going to be able to see him. And I'm not sure if I completely agree with his take, because we're in a very unique situation with Messi here, and we can't pretend that Messi isn't in this league, and we can't pretend that the prices are going up because of Messi being there, and the fans did pay 4 or 5 times extra because of Messi. So it's kind of hard to say like, oh, fans shouldn't be disappointed that they're not going to see him because they even though they paid 600, $500 for a ticket, they pay that much because Messi. That there's no other way around that. So um, I'm not saying that Houston dealt with it in the best way, but also like what could they do? I feel like if you are an FO and you know that you're going to be disappointing a lot of people, I think another game isn't that bad, especially when you consider that they're coming to the game, they could still spend money on concessions and all that, and for here in San Jose, one ticket to a game is probably about $30, right? And I've seen them go for less than that for just an average ticket. Um, So if that's your loss that you're taking, I think the extortionate prices that you got off the initial sale in the first place more than cover that extra ticket you'd be giving to a fan who might not have been coming to another game that whole season anyway. But that's just a business side of it. You know, the ethics part of it, I don't know. I think it's a really weird situation because you have to kind of capitalize off of Messi coming, but also it's a lot of money. I'm in two minds about it. I can't really say one way or another too strongly about how I feel because you know it might happen to us in a few months.
If this is the way that ticket prices are going to go, not just for sports, but we've seen it for concerts and everything, then I'm going to be content with saving my money and watching things from TV and from whatever I can. Like, that's just how it is. And Devin made a good point as well that it's not Houston Dynamo's fault. It wasn't Vancouver Whitecaps' fault. It's no club's fault. It's only Inter Miami's decision. It's their call, and I get it. Lionel Messi is their asset, and I'm sure they're getting a lot of texts from Don Garber and everyone else in MLS. Careful with Messi. Careful with Messi. And I'm sure Lionel Messi is probably talking with Gareth Bale and other players that are like, MLS is a great place to get good experience, good competitive matches, and stay fit for the World Cup. Because Lionel Messi wants to play in 2026 World Cup. It would be ridiculous for him not to play at that World Cup if he has the opportunity to, if he merits that selection, if he's been spending this much time, his third season now at Inter Miami. So for me, I don't blame the clubs doing whatever they got to do that they feel they need to do to make sure their fans are taken care of. And I just wish there were better systems in place that fans didn't feel like they have to pay an arm and a leg to see Lionel Messi as great as he is. But this much should be clear now. San Jose Earthquakes fans who watch our content, who are have any online presence whatsoever, they already know this. I don't think there's any San Jose Earthquakes fan that's disillusioned in thinking that there's a chance that Lionel Messi is going to play, or at least an expectation that he will play. Do not expect him to play. We're going to still watch. Those of us who can come will go. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Inter Miami jerseys, as there has been at every MLS game involving Inter Miami since Messi has come in. But that's just how it is.
No, I totally agree. You know, I would say if I had to put my percentage on it on how much I think he might or might not come, I think 60% he won't come, and you know that goes up when you consider that he has international matches around that time in is it May? Yeah, no, May. Yeah, sorry. um, so you know it's a Wednesday game, and I believe that he's playing that Saturday. It's one of the furthest clubs from Miami. You know, it's not looking good. So if you paid the extra price for that ticket, I feel like at least you should know that it's a gamble and you're not 100% guaranteed. You might see Suarez, you might see Jordi Alba, you might see Busquets, and I don't think that they are worth that kind of money. But you know, it's something, and I'm gonna try and go to the game. I have season tickets, so I should be at that game. But I'm not, you know, going to be throwing a fit if I don't see Lionel Messi that day.
Right. That'll bring us to some selected fixtures for this upcoming week 3. Inter Miami now has a bit of a microscope and a negative light now after that. We'll see what their team looks like against Charlotte on Sunday at 1 p.m. and the other Sunday game, Sunday Night Soccer, LA Galaxy versus St. Louis. The games that I'm interested in seeing before the Earthquakes kick off at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, New York City versus Orlando. I think that's going to be a very close, hardly contested match there. It could go either way. Probably advantage Orlando City if I had to make a guess, even though they're on a road. But 6:30, and maybe it's because the four nations and everything that's going on with Canada. And to any Canadians that are watching this, like, we respect Canada. Like, the United States and Canada are closely linked in so many different ways. And because of that, I want to make sure that appreciation is heard. And a part of that appreciation also comes in seeing whenever the MLS clubs from Canada clash. I think Vancouver Whitecaps versus Montreal may not be as heated as Toronto versus Montreal, but I think that's going to be a really good game. And Whitecaps have also started this season off positively, but Montreal, who were the most recent opponents of Minnesota United, losing 1-0 to Minnesota, are going to put up a good fight. Abram, any thoughts on any of those games before we go into our game against Minnesota?
I agree. I think that people kind of underestimate the Canadian teams. The Canadian League itself is something different entirely. I don't think we should Canadians aren't good at soccer for whatever reason. I think that they have a lot of very strong players, and their national team is very good. I think that people severely underrate their national teams more than anything else. I always enjoy when we have our Canadian, inside people on the show. I don't remember their names off the top of my head. They're more Ivan Spence than they are mine.
Angelo and Connor.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They've always been very. It's a pleasure to have them on the show, and I love talking soccer with those guys, and they're very knowledgeable. It's. I think it's great that we can share this league with the Canadian teams to spread the love and have everyone competing at a high level.
Yeah. And now for Minnesota. So Kelvin Yeboah is the clear danger man. He scored and Oluwasei assisted in their one goal that they scored at Allianz Field, St. Paul, in their win over Montreal. They play a 4-3-2 under Eric Ramsey, Dane Sinclair in goal, and they have a back five, including Michael Boxall, who is getting up there in age, but he's still a very respected center back in MLS. And they got some key weapons between Oluwasei, Yeboah, and a quality player like Jong San-bin coming off the bench as well. So they I think are going to be a tougher challenge than Sporting Kansas City. I think a part of that is that they're not competing in CONCACAF Champions Cup, so they are fully focused on MLS at the moment. They had a really strong showing in the playoffs. They were able to advance past Real Salt Lake, and they have a very stingy defense. And sometimes that's been the key to their success against Earthquakes over the last 5-6 years. And sometimes they score a good percentage of their goals of the month against us. So what are some of your thoughts going into this game?
I mean, when I think of Cincinnati, I've been big on Buddha. I think of his volley goal against them last time they were at PayPal Park. No, did I say Cincinnati? I meant Minnesota.
Minnesota? Yeah, you said
I,
Cincinnati.
if you know me, you know I cannot stop mixing Minnesota and Cincinnati up. Minnesota, that's what I was referring to. Um, yeah, I mean it's really hard to give a tactical analysis on this one because we're such a different team than we were last time we faced them, and also, frankly, there's a lot to this Bruce team that is not untested, I would say, but there's we haven't really been able to explore all of the intricacies of his tactics and the way he likes to play. So, there's a lot of question marks around this match. I feel like RSL was disappointing in how they performed against us, and the game against Kansas City was more of a grit thing than anything else, and we showed we had grit, at least, but it wasn't like a full match because we spent a lot of it with one man down, so it was hard to really, like I said, explore the how nuanced the tactics really are. I think that it's going to be interesting for me to see if Jamar Ricketts is going to continue playing and starting because last match I felt like he was good offensively from what I saw, but every time they went down the right hand side and Jamar had to hold his own and hold the player up, he did it successfully, but I didn't have too much confidence in his defending ability. I felt like if they really tried to, they could have exploited his lack of experience in that situation more. Um, and in a situation like that, you want to see Victor Costa, maybe Paul Marie, if you have him, just for stability's sake, because Ricketts probably has a higher upside than those two players, but Palmieri and Ritacosta are more like solid and more proven fullbacks and able to do their one-on-one defending. They're very experienced in those situations.
Uh, yeah, I think that Kelvin Yabo in particular is the complete package. Anything you want out of an attacker in Major League Soccer, you're gonna get that in spades. And he has a lot of road left to cover in terms of what his story is gonna be like as a Minnesota United player, and he's gonna be a very dangerous test for our back three. We're gonna see both formations shift a lot throughout the match. There's a very fine line between a 3-5-2 and a 5-3-2, and it's all on the fullbacks. And because of that emphasis on the fullbacks, we'll see if Ricketts draws his third start of the season. So, my final question about this game, we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to focus on the Hernan Lopez shaped hole in the lineup. What player would you choose to start ahead of Hernan Lopez?
I mean, my initial thought, without any hesitation, is Nico. Nico has played in the number 10 position for us, pretty frequently when we were lacking in that area. Um, and he's also left-footed, so it's not like it's a crazy difference in terms of what everyone else has to do around him. He's gonna, provide a lot in the press as well. Nico likes to run around and try and get the ball back. So I think he's an obvious decision. Um, I can't really think of anyone else who I would prefer to have there. I think that Nico in my mind, he's shown that he's at least ready for that spot. But I could see if Bruce wants to throw a wild card like he likes to do sometimes. Scan has been known to play the number 10. I don't think that he fits in this kind of system where we're like, we need to hold the ball better. We need to play good passes to our forwards. I don't think Scan is a bad passer of the ball, but he's not. That's not his expertise. It's more progression with the ball. Um, so, with that being said, I don't think that Scan provides enough in the final third to do as much as Nico might do in that situation where he can set up one of our strikers more efficiently, I should say. And I think that would result in more goals and more high quality chances than it would if we had Scan at the number 10 position.
So for our tectonic take to close the show, we're going to speak into existence. Nico Shakiris will go from out of the squad week 1, on the bench week 2, and with a little help from that red card, he's going to start week 3. And this is going to be his chance to impress Bruce Arena and to make his mark on this new system and this new era for the San Jose Earthquakes. We know he's going to play a role. Bruce Arena has reassured us that in his Bruce Arena way. But I think that this will be a great opportunity for him. It's going to be a tough one against this Minnesota United defense, but I think that if you want to emulate how this team plays with Lopez in that role, Shakiris is your best bet. Skane's a bit of a gamble. K may be a little bit too much leaning on the defensive side of things, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it unfolds. And I'm going to be at the game on Saturday, Abram.
On Saturday, I did sign up to go to the game, but my sister, sprung this on me where she has her birthday party, and so I have to go to that. My little sister, obviously, when I have to show up.
Happy
So
birthday.
yeah, happy birthday, Sarai. But I will be there on March 15th. I will be bringing my nephew to his first game, so I won't be up at the press box, but I will be, in the stands with my nephew, showing him. The stadium for the first time. He's never been to a live soccer game. He's very obsessed with soccer, and he's you might be able to hear him. He was practicing outside earlier, which is very annoying while podcasting. But I'm glad to see he has a passion for the sport like I did when I was his age. So I'll be there with him the week after. But no, I don't think I'll be there on March 8th.
You know what? Tectonic takes divide and conquer mode. You'll be there for the week after when I'm not going to be able to make it. That's quite all right. Well, our paths are going to cross again enough.
For
And
sure.
I look forward to the next match we can go together. One thing that we're excited for, we'll leave you with this tease, is that next week we're recording with Goal Sided. We're going to have a little bit of a crossover, perhaps a long awaited, at least for me, crossover with Goal Sided. And the way that they do things, we're going to provide a mini version of that at some point during the podcast where we'll dive a little bit into some of the biggest storylines from the world of soccer that they're known for covering in their full podcasts. And we'll bring a little bit of that energy, but with mostly a San Jose Earthquakes coat of paint when they come over. But of course, they're San Jose, Morgan Hill guys. They love the Quakes just as much as we do. Abram, you're excited for that? We'll be having Omar over.
Yeah, Omar is a baller. He's a great player and obviously a really good dude as well. It was Caesar who taught me how to do my first shotgun, but Omar was there cheering me on all the same.
Yep. So there you go. That's going to be it for us tonight. Earthquakes, 2 wins and two to start this season, but Minnesota United no slouch. We're going to be excited for that game on Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Be sure to drop this video a like, leave a comment, let us know your thoughts, or just help the algorithm. We are getting closer to 500 subscribers, so we really appreciate if you could ask any of your friends, family members, partners, dogs, cats to subscribe to us. But as always, go Quakes.
Go Quakes.